Like the one where Johnny died, like when they had like the deal was in the game, it was like, okay.
And Saints Row 4 was on the horizon. In 20
Like what the are we talking about? He was the president, superpowers, and needed to fight aliens. Nostalgia be affecting me sometimes too, but sometimes let's do new shit. Not some, a lot of times. If another Saints Row come out, it has to be straight gang bullshit, bandanas, like low riders. Like, come on, man, that's what I want to see.
Believe me when I say I'ma pull up when the stage drops. Believe me when I say she don't look good.
Yo, what it is, everybody? It's your boy Srotonn here, but you can call me Todd. All right, listen. We finna watch Why Saints Row Failed. Now, this is one of my favorite gaming series, man. My bro, like I couldn't play this when I was younger, but so I played this like when I turned like 18, bro. That's Saints Row 2, my nigga. Let's get into it though.
The Saints Row series went from being one of the only franchises that could compete with Grand Theft Auto to literally killing its parent company. What went wrong, and how did one developer lose nearly everything due to one failed game?
I will say, honestly, bro, to me, I think Saints Row just got too silly. GTA is silly, but Saints Row just took it to another level, bro. Like, it was crazy. Like, the one where Johnny died, like, when they had, like, the deal was in the game, it was like, okay. But after that, bro, it was like, God, it was like an alien game after that. Like, what the f we doing?
Well, the story begins in the early 2000s when there was only one open world game that dominated the entire gaming landscape. And of course, it was Grand Theft Auto. The series seemed completely untouchable. That is, until two young companies worked together to introduce a worthy rival known as Saints Row. The first Saints Row game was developed by Volition and published by THQ way back in 2006.
I might have to play this too because I've never played the first one. I only played the second one. I was like searching. I'm like, bro, there has to be a second one. They wouldn't make a Saints Row 2 that wasn't the first one.
The game was a bit buggy and unpolished, but it was embraced by critics and players alike. It was brimming with personality and scratched a unique itch that gamers didn't even know they had. Volition was incredibly smart about how they tried to create a competitor to GTA. They knew that they couldn't beat Rockstar at their own game, and if they tried to publish a typical gritty shooter set in the city, their project would be dismissed as a knockoff. The only way to compete with Grand Theft Auto was to bring something new to the table. For Saints Row, it was the fact that the game didn't take itself too seriously. Where Grand Theft Auto was about realism, Saints Row was about fun. And this starts with the characters, who were exaggerated stereotypes of gangsters with banter that was packed with fun, not so serious one-liners. The story follows your character as you help your fellow gang members take down rivals in the city of Stillwater. And while this first installment was
Stillwater, I remember that, boy. Come on now.
More serious than its successors, it still found a unique voice when compared to GTA. The writing was balanced, keeping the tone light while also allowing one to genuinely fall in love with the main protagonists. There were some deeper themes mixed in, with missions where you have to ragdoll your character into traffic to collect insurance money. It was the perfect balance and the quirky.
That's crazy. That been in that game for the longest, bro. I remember doing that. But yeah, like you say, bro, like something like this, like it didn't take itself too seriously, but it still had a seriousness about it, bro. Like they like completely went dumb, stupid, silly on the story.
In the game was held up by legitimately solid and engaging gunplay centered on the story's escalating gang war. The combination of fun gameplay and unique humor quickly earned the young franchise a healthy fan base. By the end of the year, it had sold more than 1 million copies. Volition had the start of a real franchise.
So if the first one sold 1 million, I can't wait to hear how much the second one sold.
It was clear that Saints Row had a lot of potential, so both THQ and Volition knew that they had to be very intentional with their next moves regarding the series. They needed to turn their smash hit into an empire that could truly challenge Grand Theft Auto. And at least in the early stages, they would do exactly this. Within 2 years, Volition followed up with a solid sequel. Saints Row 2 was built directly on the foundation
amazing game to me
that was established by the original. The story is set a few years after the first game and keeps
this
the core
is the
characters
one I don't know, but bro,
action and expands
when you could
on.
fly
And because of this, Saints Row 2 is the most beloved game of the entire franchise.
I'm telling you,
they knocked it out of the park. It was of course they followed this up with Saints Row 3. The third game in the series takes us to a new city.
This one I was talking about. I played this one. I thought it was cool. It wasn't bad, to be honest. But then that fourth one, bro. That fourth one game.
And leans even more into the humor of previous games. Saints Row 3 feels like a massive amusement park entirely focused on allowing the player to have a good time and cause massive amounts of chaos. And this is also the title where the franchise finally left Grand Theft Auto's shadow and
if this is the one, I don't know, but bro, when you could fly in listening to Power by Kanye West, bro, that was something this amazing by that. Got two mother Uzis in your, oh man.
Establish itself as its own unique IP. And part of this reason is because they continue to drift further away from the serious tones in the previous two games and focus more on outlandish, wild, and edgy humor. And as you probably know, this is what Saints Row became known for. To give you a glimpse into the edgy and hilarious themes that the Saints Row series leaned into, let's introduce Johnny Gat. This fan-favorite character is a deadpan, edgy sociopath who always shoots first and never asks questions at all, cares nothing about civilian collateral damage, and is extremely self-obsessed. He says things that he shouldn't say, does things that he shouldn't do, and his edginess is why fans loved him. Fans also loved the insane array of hilarious weapons like the Shark-O-Matic, which shoots shark guts at enemies, the Apocalypse, which are comically large fists that splatter civilians, and the Penetrator, which we aren't going to talk about. The character customization
I ain't gonna lie, I used to hit people with it.
The vehicles, the combat, everything about Saints Row 3 was extremely unique, and it all had a lot of charm.
It was cool.
Used this quirky humor as a key differentiating factor to place Saints Row over Grand Theft Auto, and this is a big part of what helped it to excel as a franchise. The Saints Row series had climbed to the top and amassed support from fans and critics fairly quickly, but could this momentum last forever? Volition was in the process of developing an expansion for Saints Row 3 called Enter the Dominatrix, but as work was being done on this new spin-off, THQ, Volition's publisher, went bankrupt. This was bad, and it meant that funding for the new expansion
and that explains why that fourth one stunk like that.
And all future Saints Row projects was on hold. This could have very easily been the singular moment that killed Saints Row, but Deep Silver saved the day. The publisher Deep Silver won the bidding for both Saints Row and Volition, meaning that they took full ownership of the entire studio and would publish future Saints Row games. This was great news for Volition because it likely saved the entire franchise from being canceled altogether. They now had the backing and financial support to continue to work on the series, and that little Saints Row 3 expansion project now had the potential to be turned into something larger, a full game. And with Deep Silver being known for publishing other outlandish titles like Dead Island, they were likely much more comfortable than THQ with the increasingly quirky and bizarre direction that Saints Row was going in. It was the perfect partner for Volition, and Saints Row 4 was on the horizon. In 2013, the game launched. Instead of the usual semi-grounded gang battles, the protagonist in this game somehow developed superpowers, became the president, and needed to fend off an invading alien race.
Like, what the fuck are we talking about? He was the president, superpowers, and needed to fight aliens? All this coming from gang wars on the street. Like, what the fuck are we talking about?
It was by far the funniest and strangest game yet, and it seemed like Volition and many of its fans had fully embraced this new identity. The game was great. Well, for most. Despite the positive reviews, the release of the sequel was a mixed bag. Some fans felt that it had gone completely off the rails and lost itself. As much as the early games didn't take themselves too seriously, they still had respect for the characters and the narrative that they were spinning.
Of course.
Abandoning the core tension of grounded gang wars seemed like a misstep to a lot of people. Many fans wanted the game to go back to its roots. And ironically, Deep Silver would later attempt to do this, and like I said, as we all know, it failed. And these fans were even more disappointed when in 2015, Volition...
Look at this. This nigga has devil angel wings. What is this?
Developed another Saints Row game called Gat Out of Hell. This was again supposed to be an expansion, but somehow turned into yet another entirely new game. And
the nigga was like in hell or some shit?
Fans
like,
of the original grounded Saints Row style hated this even more than Saints Row 4, and people who actually enjoyed the new style thought it should have just been a DLC for the previous game. Across the board, Gat Out of Hell was widely regarded as something that simply shouldn't have been made, and coming out only 2 years after Saints Row 4, fans were getting a bit worried that Deep Silver was going to milk and potentially ruin this franchise. And oh boy, were they right. Now real quick, I was going to dive into the disastrous launch of Agents of Mayhem, which was set in the Saints Row universe and was supposed to be some kind of spin-off.
I didn't know that.
The story of this game could be an entire video, so let me know in the comments if that's something you want to see. Long story short, Volition
do your thing, brother, but
used the Saints Row name to try to sell copies of this new, uninspired spin-off game, and everything about this game was extremely underwhelming and disappointing. This, combined with the uninspired and pointless release of Gat Out of Hell, really made fans lose hope in the series.
Look at this Gat Out of Hell.
Had genuine concerns that Deep Silver was...
So, like, I didn't play this, so this looks like basically we are fighting as Johnny Gat in the depths of hell. Fighting demons? What the I know people like Johnny Gat, but goodness gracious.
Going to absolutely kill the Saints Row franchise. If the series were to survive, they would need something amazing. And it sucks when a developer ruins a game franchise. These days, we don't even own our games anymore, and if a developer or a platform like Steam decided that they wanted to remove your game from your account, they have the ability to do that.
Oh, I didn't know that they could do that.
Most games these days have DRM, which basically means that the games you buy aren't really yours.
I need to get on Steam.
You can use them as long as the developer allows it, but you don't own it. And this is something that I'm extremely passionate about.
Wow,
I feel like gamers should actually be able to own their games and not be controlled by the whims of money-hungry developers. And to be honest, that's why I buy most of my games from GOG.
See you. You got me. You got me. You got me.
In the Saints Row series at Gamescom. So after 4 years of near silence, Deep Silver would announce the newest title in the Saints Row series at Gamescom 2021. Interestingly, the new game was a complete reboot of the franchise rather than a direct sequel. Because of the absurdity of the last full release and the even more absurd expansions, the devs believed that they had written themselves into a corner. As stated by Jim Boone, the chief creative officer at Volition, even though
I have this game too and I need to play it. It started off cool, but I mean, I don't know, man. I don't know if it just seems like it just lost its touch. You know what I'm saying? I feel like it didn't involve gangs. I was just like, ugh.
Though we love the mechanics with all the superpowers, there isn't a whole lot of runway to go past that. It's why it was a pretty easy decision to go back to our roots and do something that was more contemporary. This reboot was supposed to do exactly that.
And this seemed like
back
more
to its
of like
roots
a
and give it a fresh start and the chance to
Saints
recapture
Row
new and old fans
GTA.
alike. It's easy to make a case for why this was a good idea. I mean, Saints Row 4 was nearly 8 years old, and gaming had come a long way in that time. Although the franchise's sequels had innovated in numerous small ways, each game still relied on the same basic formula that was now almost 2 decades old. The reality is that many fans were calling for the series to end by the third game, and even more thought it should have stopped at the 4th game.
Oh,
People had liked
please.
Saints Row, but they were beginning to feel like the series was just getting milked for money. The devs needed to prove that they actually had interesting ideas for those sequels, and that they were more than just a cash grab. And although there were certainly benefits to a reboot, there were also a lot of downsides. Reboots have gotten a pretty bad reputation in recent years. Fans are tired of childhood favorites being puppeted by cynical companies looking to profit off nostalgia, and that was part of the reason why fans.
And that's what and I know, bro, nostalgia is cool. It's cool, but sometimes, bro, we gotta just let it. Let's get new stuff. Let's get new things to like. I like nostalgia be affecting me sometimes too, but sometimes let's just do shit, bro. Let's do new shit. A lot of times, let's do new shit. Find new shit to create, bro. Like this, trying to get back old shit, especially not doing it the right way, it just gets old.
Harshly when they realized that none of the old characters were returning for this game. Instead, we were getting an entirely new cast and story.
Like who the fuck
and
are
the writing
these people?
changes weren't just limited to new characters,
but it was cool. I didn't mind that.
The edgy humor that had made people fall in love with the franchise was gone. Instead, the devs had attempted to shift to a writing style that was meant to appeal to younger audiences. I say attempt because the writers completely dropped the ball. Every word of dialogue in Saints Row 2022 comes off as trite and cringy. A game series that was known for its unique humor was suddenly dropping awful lines like this.
Get the fuck away from my friends.
Saints Row's main characters have always been parodies of the traditional.
What's wrong with that? But no, I can see what he's saying, bro. It just felt like it just didn't hit.
Gangster. By contrast, the new series was trying to replace them with a squad of scrawny millennials who were actually trying to be cool.
Scrawny
and just
millennials.
weren't. I mean, just take a look at the comments on the reveal trailer. The reboot was supposed to be a return to the series' roots, yet Saints Row had never felt less like Saints Row. Right off the bat,
telling you,
the game
this is not it.
Fans. Trailers are supposed to be an opportunity for companies to put their best foot forward and generate hype. And somehow, this trailer had actively pushed people away from buying the game, and things were only going to get worse. Almost right after the announcement of the reboot, it was revealed that Mike Watson, aka Idle Ninja, had passed away. Watson had been one of the most influential modders in the Saints Row community. He was responsible not just for some of the best mods in the community, but also for working on an official patch for Saints Row 2 to fix many of the issues with the PC port. Watson had been battling cancer for a while, but that hadn't stopped him from pouring his heart and soul into the community. And some fans felt that the reboot was a slap in the face to his legacy. Others felt that the studio should be dedicating more resources to finish the patch that Watson had been working on before his death to ensure that the project was finally completed. Regardless of the quality of the Saints Row revamp, it's undeniable that many at Volition cared for Watson and were genuinely devastated by his passing. A lot of the insults and digs that fans took at grieving employees were legitimately uncalled for. However, it was also a representation of just how much Saints Row fans had turned against Volition. In many ways, Mike acted as a bridge between the company and fans. His loss ensured that the divide between them was only—
I actually have never heard of him, but like I said, man, RIP the game, man. You know, when somebody cares that much and try to be that bridge, because somebody going to and once and is try to be that gap, that shit is amazing. You know what I'm saying? Like, because I feel like it takes a lot of bravery for you to be like, I'm gonna be the guy, you know what I'm saying? So shout out to bro wider. The game hadn't even dropped, and Volition was facing a fan base that was more against them than they had ever been before. But it was too late to cancel the game or make any big changes. All they could do now was release it and pray that the full experience— not Telltale. Telltale don't give a fuck. They're gonna be like, yeah, we're gonna release. Naturally, no, we're not.
Experience was a lot better than the trailer led people to believe. Saints Row was released on August 23rd, 2022, with all the grace of a car crash. Somehow the game was even worse than players thought. Even critics who usually give everything positive reviews were trashing the game. It was buggy to the point of being unplayable. The graphics were dated and lifeless. And it wasn't just the graphics that felt old, but the entire design of the game itself. In an attempt to go back to its roots, Saints Row somehow only succeeded in bringing back outdated design choices that modern games have avoided for years. The game is packed full of repetitive side missions that are tedious more than anything else. Practically every side quest boiled down to stealing something or shooting someone. There are annoying stealth sections, which as we all know, people hate. The AI for enemies is incredibly stupid, and you can't even interact with most of the world.
I really don't even know how I feel about stealth. I'm not even gonna lie. Sometimes I do like it, sometimes I don't. I might like stealth. I'm not gonna lie. It depends on this. That's why I gotta play what is it? Hitman. I gotta play Hitman. But I think, and I don't know if this is just me, bro. Why don't people just come out with a game? A game to have with rival gangs and just call it a day. Like, I don't know, bro. Like, I haven't seen a game like that in so long, and I don't think it'll be problematic because we're literally shooting people and kicking them out of their car.
There are bicycles you can't ride, casinos you can't enter, and much more. In the modern era, where open world games like Red Dead Redemption 2 and Breath of the Wild have become the standard, Saints Row 2022 was laughably outclassed. But the real disaster with the new release was the absolutely atrocious writing and corporatized lifeless characters and story. All the raunchy and edgy jokes of past games were actively sanitized to the point in which nobody really understood who it appealed to. The game's characters came off as sitcom teenagers rather than hardened gangsters. There was no depth to these characters and no attempt to get us to like them. They were all basically archetypes that existed to do nothing but spout quirky one-liners that weren't even funny, and you could feel Volition's desperation to be hip with the kids.
This shit literally felt like Saints Row 4, and that's why I didn't like it. Or like a little bit of Saints Row 3. I just was like,
oozing through the screen.
I already played the Saints Row 3,
didn't have anything to say. There could have been real comedy in this setup. You have a bunch of loser, privileged teenagers acting as wannabe gangsters. If Volition leaned into this, there maybe could have been potential for a lot of actually good jokes. And something like this would be somewhat different from the past Saints Row sequels. But that wasn't
I don't mind the new characters,
Volition made the cast boring and tried to toss in every buzzword they could justify, and it came off as a painfully corporate attempt to seem modern. And the poor writing poisoned the rest of the game. Some of the other design choices could have been forgiven if the game at least made you laugh, but it didn't. So in the end, we were left with a game with dated mechanics, terrible writing, and so many bugs that it was practically unplayable. It should be obvious how Saints Row became one of the worst reviewed games of 2022. It was undefendable. Saints Row was a disaster from a corporate perspective as well. Volition's parent company, Embracer Group, immediately entered panic mode.
Where did they put the
their shock and disappointment at the game's reception, which is crazy because they should have seen this coming. Saints Row was in a particularly horrible spot too because Volition had burned so much goodwill from the fan base that it was unclear if they could ever even bounce back. Frankly, a good amount of fans had already sworn off the series for good, and another sequel wasn't going to fix that. And all of these factors led Embracer to make a pretty tragic decision. They shut down Volition. The studio was merged into a subsidiary company of Gearbox Entertainment, who was just acquired by Take-Two Interactive. So now there are so many
goddamn Take-Two. Shout out to Take-Two though.
Levels in the structure that Volition is pretty much irrelevant in the grand scheme of things, and that, at least for the foreseeable future, there is little to no hope of Saints Row coming back and redeeming itself. And there's something kind of sad about that, but a lot of people may look at it as a good thing.
I think it's a good thing,
Saints Row dead for good? Maybe. The rights to the game still belong to Deep Silver. They may choose to bring the series back, but it's more likely that the game is finally laid to rest, especially since they no longer own Volition, and they only own the rights to the IP. Honestly, the whole reason that any of this happened is because Deep Silver's insistence on milking the franchise for all it had. And because of this, perhaps it's for the best that the game is finally done for good. Would you guys want another Saints Row, or do you think that the series is a lost cause? How do you feel about the tragedy of the newest Saints Row? Did you ever play the old ones? Let me know your thoughts on this whole situation in the comments. I would.
Okay, so good video, because I love Saints Row, and I didn't really know exactly what happened to it, and I like Brody because he gets straight to the point and tells you what happened. Now, would I like another Saints Row? I can't say that I wouldn't like it. If another Saints Row come out, it has to be straight gang bullshit. I'm talking like San Andreas, like type, like, but in a Saints Row, like straight gang shit, bro. Like, I don't want to see no fucking, like he said, these privileged motherfucking millennials trying to be cool, act as gangsters. No, bro, bandanas. Like, goddamn, low riders. Like, come on, man. That's what I want to see. Because that's what people love about Saints Row 2. It was, bro. And it has serious moments in Saints Row 2. But it is what it is. If it don't come out, I'll be cool too. It's so many more games to play. But I think that's all I really got to say, man. I appreciate everybody for coming through. Till next time, I'm out.